Welcome to your weekly 10-minute connection to the heart of life groups at Celebration Church, bringing you insight, encouragement, and real conversations with the people who make it happen. This is 10 on Tuesday.
Hey, life group leaders. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
I'm so blessed to be joined by my sister in Christ, Mina D'Amico. Thank you for being here. She is a life group leader through the Bloc. She's a section leader, and she works at the Hope Closet.
I do.
Styling all the mannequins, and it's real cute.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today.
Of course, Emily.
So Mina and I are talking about how to lead with boundaries. Being a life group leader is great, and we form connections, and there's community, and there's sisterhood and brotherhood for the male leaders. But we also need to find that balance of how to lead and make friendships, but keep that understanding there that we are the leader.
Right.
So how long have you been a life group leader?
I had to think about this for a second, but I think roughly about 4 years now.
How beautiful.
So, yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I appreciate your leadership. It really exudes out of you, and I appreciate that about you. So how have you personally navigated building genuine friendships with your life group members and still leading them well?
So this question actually makes me think. I had one girl. So when I first started my life group, it was this very small group, and two girls were very consistent. But one was always there. So if it wasn't me, it was just me and her. So a lot of times it was just one-on-one. And to be honest, to start out as a life group leader, it worked out perfectly for me in that sense. And so we would have a lot of conversations. She was just really had for the first time made a real commitment to the Lord at that point in her life. And she would tell me, she's like, okay, she would call me on the phone and she said, Mina, I need life group leader Mina right now. And then other times she'd call me, she's like, I need friend Mina now. And I thought it was funny that she would differentiate between those two. Yeah. And I think in the beginning, it was far more of a life group leader relationship. And we were still friends, but it was just on and off. But that relationship grew into be a genuine friendship to the point where she is one of my closest friends now. So I think in that sense, I think it's just regular friendships in the sense that you build. You earn their trust and they earn your trust over time. And that looked like life group leading in the sense that sometimes she would call me and, we'd have to talk through something late at night, and it might last an hour. And there were other times where I knew it was going to be a long call. So I told her, I was like, I can't do it tonight, but we can reschedule. And she was always respectful of my time, thankfully, in that sense. So we could balance that. But I think it just took being her leader for a while. And in that sense, earned her respect. And then she also earned mine. Yeah. And then we, were able to say that we're genuinely, true friends.
Yeah.
Today. So
I'm glad that you put it that way because it is setting those boundaries, but it's like a friendship.
It is.
We are building friendships with the people we lead.
To do life with them.
Exactly. But knowing our capacity.
Yes.
And when we can show up for them and when we have to take a step back and recognize it's not the time. So that's really good, establishing that balance and those boundaries. But have you ever had a time where establishing the boundaries was difficult and you had to learn from it?
I definitely have over the years. I think more than anything, it's with my time as a life group leader. So I think that you can set boundaries for and you can communicate that in several ways. Like when the girls, for example, in the group chat don't respond. So as life group leaders, we know that a lot of times it's hard for them to get them to respond in the group message. If they don't respond by a certain time, I would cut off. Because there was a season where I struggled getting anybody to come. And that I would cancel it by a certain time if they didn't respond. I had girls call and complain. They're like, well, yeah, I want to come, but you always cancel. Well, I can't sit at a coffee shop and wait 30 minutes after the time to see if anybody shows up if you didn't respond. So that was me setting boundaries. I had to learn that because before I'm more of a passive person. So sometimes I would wait. But it took me a little bit of, you just build up a little bit more, push back and you're like, okay, I have to set a boundary for this. This is my time as well, not just y'all's. So by setting that boundary practically, I think that's one way. To set that. And as well as when you're actually leading the agenda and facilitating the conversation, I think you need to share and be vulnerable because they need to know that you're struggling with the basic things as well, so that they don't feel out of place or they feel that they can open up and share their same struggles. But at the same time, as their leader, you shouldn't be, I think, putting out all of your business. And thankfully, for example, I have a co-leader. So me and Krista will have our pre-meetings an hour before. I can get out some stuff before my week with Krista, and she can do the same with me.
Yeah.
And then when we have our group, we can be vulnerable about those things without going into the details about our lives. I think that also creates a healthy boundary while you're in the group, because they don't need to necessarily know all of your business as a leader. They do need to look at you with respect in that sense. And so I think there's a balance to being vulnerable, but also making sure that it's also not about you as a life group leader. And that's another important thing. You don't want to end up dumping on them. It's for them to receive in that sense. So.
Wow, the selflessness in that and the discernment of knowing what to share, when to hold back, and what Holy Spirit is putting on your heart to share.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you said that. As the leaders, we set the tone.
We do.
So that's powerful that you learned that lesson of how to set the tone for your girls and let them know what's important to you as a leader, but what will help the group dynamic in general.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really good, Mina. And what do healthy boundaries actually look like in a life group setting? You touched on it with what to share, what not to share, when to pick up the phone, when not to pick up the phone. But even among life group members, like how can there be healthy boundaries in respecting each other's opinions and making it sure everyone feels safe?
That's a good point. I think one of those ways is making sure that everybody has time to speak, because you always have your talkers, and that's good. Sometimes they can help carry the conversation if you have a quiet group, but you also have to make sure you have to reel them in sometimes. You can't let them overpower the conversation, because then some of the girls will feel like, well, I'm not going to share anything because we've been on this question for too long. Yeah. Let's say. So I think you have to think of them in that sense. And then I think that also takes discernment and coming to know your girls, or, whatever your life group leaders for the men or for the women. But for me, for my girls, I know the girls that don't talk as often in that sense. So if we're going around the group, and, you always have the ones that will respond first. But I think sometimes, and I've also learned this from Michelle, but just ask them a particular question, a more specific question that you've tailored to them because you know what's going on in their life to an extent. And then apply it to them and just call them out in a very sweet way. So one of my girls, Sheehan, I might just be like, so Sheehan, what do you think about this? And then that opens up an opportunity for her to speak, because she always has something valuable to add. She's just not going to be the first one to jump into the conversation. Yeah. So I think sometimes it can look like that, making sure that they all just knowing your girls, I think enough. Like this one might not say anything, but if you ask her, she will. And then making sure your talkers, they have their room to speak, but reeling them in when you need to. And then I think when you as a leader open up in vulnerability and share some of those details, I think it makes it to where that at that point, after you've shared a little bit of that, if they're struggling to open up, that's when they'll be like, okay, if you're struggling with this, I also, have struggled with this. And then it allows them to open up. And normally from there, I think it just trickles down after that.
Right. Everyone feels open.
Exactly.
And I love what you brought up earlier, that you and Krista meet an hour before.
We do.
And y'all get things off your chest.
Yeah, we do.
Disciple each other and help each other through things. And that's a great thing to think about, because I didn't think about that. Being careful what to bring to life group. Yeah. And knowing what I need to get off my chest before, what I need to pray about or bring to wise counsel or bring to Haley, my co-leader. Yeah. Before having that group discussion.
It's necessary for me and Krista.
That's so good. So, that's a great tool to use. Yeah. And being careful with that, because if you've gotten it off of your chest, you won't feel compelled to share too much.
Exactly.
Right. Because you've already shared.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really good to think about. And how do you balance being real and open without shifting the focus away that you are their leader? How have you kept that respect from your girls?
I think I don't know exactly how I've done this. But I think being consistent is part of it. Just making sure that you're always there.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's even the little things that you don't think about. For example, like I was at the Sunday morning service. I didn't even tell the girls what time I was going. They just knew I would be there. And they knew what section I sit in because I sit in the same section every time. So I think sometimes it's that they know that you're going to be there. So I think it's consistency as a leader helps with that. And I also think being prepared for life group is something, because there's been seasons where I just showed up and that was the first time I read the agenda, if we're all being honest.
Yeah.
But when I review it beforehand, when I look at the scriptures beforehand, when I read it in the morning, when I pray over my girls, I go in far more prepared, and then I'm able to add, like my little Bible nerd knowledge is, like here I'm able to throw in that nugget. I'm able to help them understand the context of it because I've looked at it beforehand. And normally my girls are like, when I add that, they'll say, oh, good. They were like, that's a good point, like good reminder. I think that also earns their respect because they know that you know what you're talking about, that you've looked at it beforehand, that you've came prepared for them. You're not just winging it. So I think those are a few things that probably help with earning their respect. And then just loving them well.
That is so great. And you're so good at that, Mina. It's easy for you to love people because you love God and you know he loves you. And so I feel that comes from you. You're confident in what you have to offer to your life group and just our ministry in general. So thank you for being you. And thank you for joining me today.
Of course.
Thank y'all so much for listening. And I pray that this conversation was edifying and that this will increase your heart knowledge as you go forward in leadership. See y'all later.
Join us next week as we continue strengthening leaders, building community, and changing lives. This is Tien on Tuesday.